Hello, and here we are at Perfectly Paranormal, episode 111. My name's Annaschmidt. Yes, you know, I say it every week. And I'm here to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons, and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. They truly don't. And I have trouble getting people to listen sometimes because they just don't believe what I have to say. But it is all 100% true. And today is no different. I thought it was about time that I shared my book called The Darkness Around Us, and what it was like to write a book about devils, demons, the darkness, and everything that goes with it, especially seeing I had an overseer from the dark realm watching every step. So I call my book A Handbook to Understanding Darkness, So You Live in the Light. And this book came about from over 30 years of my observing entities through my personal paranormal addiction and my experiences and friends and client experiences that I've collected. And I have to tell you, they're all stored in my brain. That is how much of a paranormal addict that I am. I remember nearly every single detail of every experience that I've had or that someone else has shared with me. It's interesting because I wouldn't say that I'm a writer. It's not that I come from a writing background. I'm going to get into this in a minute. But I was literally pushed by management, which is upstairs, which is your angels, archangels, God source, whatever you want to call it, to write this book, which is an interesting concept that the light wanted me to write a book about the darkness. And the darkness kind of approved, but sent the overseer to make sure I wrote it in the way that they were most happy. Now, this book, it really does aim to educate the reader by demystifying the dark realm and its inhabitants. A lot of people don't like me doing that. They want the devil to be scary. They want the demons to be dark and dangerous and they're going to kill you. I'm sorry, it just isn't that. If you've been listening to this podcast long enough, you will know why these beings are here and what they get up to. And especially important, this book gives people awareness of these beings' tactics and their intentions, because it's really essential for you to maintain your well-being and your harmonious surroundings, because these beings will cause disruption if you let them. And it all comes down to what we let them do. Now, I shared some of the signs and symptoms back in episode 104 and 105. So I'm not going to be going into detail about every single little thing in each chapter. But I thought you might like to hear why it was written, how it was written, and who hung around with me until the book was finished and published. So let's get into it as we talk about my book called The Darkness Around Us. Now, I must say that I write in a very simple way. I pretty much write the way that I talk. Same language. There's nothing academic about the way that I have written this book. It is in very simple, easy to understand language. And this I have been told by people aged from the age of 10 right through the age of 80 who have read my book and went, wow, absolutely fascinating, and you've really opened my eyes to another perspective about dark energy beings. And I really must tell you this, there's an elderly lady who lives in Canada, and a friend gifted her a copy of my book, and she sat up all night and she read the whole book, all 300 plus pages, in one sit. She said that she just couldn't put it down. Now, she doesn't use the internet, so a friend of a friend wrote an email and then sent me the email to give me that message. And I was like, oh, so excited that people are enjoying the content. So enough waffling on, we're going to get into this book. So as soon as I started the process of writing this book, the energy in my home changed. How can I say? It had a buzz to it. there was wafting energy, there was denser energy. And you'll know why when I share this. I had a visitor. Now this visitor, I don't know whether he was pushed into it or whether he put his hand up for the job. He had two reasons why he was here. And this is how I shared the encounter in my book. And I called this experience the Minder. Now, there's all sorts of spirit guides, including regular spirit guides, spirit animals, ascended masters, angels, archangels. People often ask me, can we only have high vibrational spirit guides or helpers? My answer is no. And it became no when I had my very own dark helper, or minder, as he preferred to be called. Now, sometimes you just have to think outside the box. We all have different needs, we have different jobs in life, we have different life perspectives, and the appropriate helper will be provided for a particular purpose. Well, I had this dark energy guide who made himself known, like seriously made himself known. This guy had a big ego. I think I would have called him a Legion General level entity. I don't know that he was a Legion General, but he had that feel of authority about him. Now, he preferred to be called a minder, like I just said. Spirit guide, woohoo, that's a little bit woo-woo for the dark energy realm. It's just not part of their vocabulary. Believe it or not, management, which is your high vibrational beings, approved him to be here. As sometimes the light and the dark beings work together because they really want to help us with our specific needs. I was a little bit panicky when this being was in my house. I was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to sleep? How am I going to function? Well, he did give me my space. He was over my shoulder watching everything that I did when I wrote my book. But then when I wasn't writing the book or I wasn't thinking about it, he would just give me the space. He'd just back off into the ether, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, maybe he's got multiple jobs. Who knows? He didn't talk much. He was just present. So I did some dowsing with the pendulum. So I wanted to ask about who he was, what he was up to, because I really am a sticky beak. That's an Australian term. It's an Australian slang term for someone who wants to know information, and I just wanted to understand his purpose. Now, the answer was rather interesting. This being hasn't lived as a human, as you would imagine. Some people do ask me that, though. I ask whether dark energy beings have ever lived as humans, but we're not going to get into that topic now. He is a dark energy being from the dark realm, and he was assigned, as they all have jobs, just like we do, assigned to me as a helper or a minder to oversee the writing of this book. And to report back to the big man himself, I suppose, if he's even interested. But this being was also a mediator for the transitioning work that I started to do with dark entities into the afterlife. And I do talk about that in chapter 6. This being didn't give me a name, and he communicated, how can I put it, kind of through a sort of verbal or visual telepathy. He would let me know when he wasn't happy. Now, he wasn't harmful in any way. All those people out there quaking in their boots at the thought of a dark entity following me around the house, like constantly for a year and a half. So as I worked with negotiating and clearing dark and demonic level entities into the afterlife, his presence gave them a level of reassurance. It kind of gave me the tick of approval, if that makes sense. Because quite often they're fearful or hateful or really quite spiteful and annoyed at human beings because we represent these entities in rather negative, inappropriate ways sometimes. And we're not going to talk a lot about this being, but you'll find more about that story in the introduction to the book. Here was my very first experience that I shared, and you'll find that in the introduction. So let's get into the chapters. Now, chapter 1, oh my goodness, there's 6 chapters. I'm going to backtrack here. There's 6 chapters to this book. And I share more than 110 real life experiences. So chapter 1. This is where I looked at 17 different levels of paranormal beings. We start at the lightest of the paranormal beings. Now, I've included spirits, because some people are frightened of them. They think they are paranormal beings. And I just needed to start somewhere at the very, very lightest level. And we work from spirits, we talk about trapped souls, we talk about the Hat Man. I even include cosmic entities because sometimes they are present in our environment and I put them into the observer section. We talk about feeders, and this is where we get into the darker energy beings. We talk about streakers, and no, we're not talking about the sort of streakers that run across cricket fields in the nutty. We talk about shockers, auditory infiltrators, black-eyed children, and I've included the sexual entities, the incubus and succubus entities, as some people call them. We also look at Legion soldiers, sub-commanders, Legion generals, and the Dark Leader himself. So I talk about what I know about the hierarchy of these dark energy beings. And I clarified as best as I can from what I know. No one knows everything. I never call myself a paranormal expert. There's no such thing. So that chapter is really interesting at demonstrating the contrast between these beings and how they've told me that they work. So chapter 2. Now chapter 2 is really interesting. This is what I talked about back in episode 104 and 105. So if you're one of those people that is not really a reader, you're more a listener, you're more auditory, have a listen to those 2 episodes because I share a lot of similar information, but also some new information that I discovered or experienced after this book was finished. I talk a lot about energetic attachment when it comes to these entities. I'm going to get to that in chapter 3. It's also prevalent for chapter 2 because when these beings are around us, it can be a sign of energetic attachment. It's how your body responds to these beings when they're present. Because we have an energy body in our physical body. So the energy body is your chakras, your meridian lines, your energy field. Your physical body is your skeletal, your nervous system, digestive system, all the fleshy bits. They're both combined. Now, the fleshy body, we'll call it that, doesn't cope well with changes in the energetic environment around us. And because we're all individuals, our bodies, our fleshy bodies, respond in different ways to paranormal presence. This is why I wrote this book, because it has really helped people understand if it's not a medical cause and it's not a mental health issue that's causing this particular problem, it has to be energetic or environmental. That's another point. So those 2 sometimes go together because what's in your environment affects the way that your fleshy body responds, but also the way your energy body responds. And the best way to understand how these dark or demonic beings, or even the spirits, affect our physical body and our energy body is to read the real-life experiences that I share throughout the book and indeed throughout this podcast. People say to me, I love what you do because I can relate to the experiences. They're not some fanciful narrative story that is, it makes me frightened and feel scared and it makes me go, oh, now that's a possibility. Oh, is that all? Oh, now I know why I experienced that when I was a child. And I actually had a man tell me that. I did a talk on signs and symptoms of paranormal presence. And one man just sat there with his mouth open the whole time. And at the end, he put his finger up and he's shaking his finger, but not in a bad way. He's going, wow, he said, the light has just come on. Now I know why I had certain experiences when I was a child. Now, he didn't expand anymore. I don't need to know unless he wants to tell me. It's not my business. But if what I share through my book, through my podcast, through my constant talking about this topic, if it helps people understand why they experience certain things in their homes or with themselves or with people around them or at work or when they go to the park, that's what I'm here for. It's not about views or downloads or subscriber numbers on YouTube. We all want big numbers, but you know what? Big numbers isn't important. It's about helping people understand in a real way how and why these beings affect us. And I do say, and you're probably sick of hearing me say it, before you assume you've got an energetic issue, please see your GP, see your doctor, see your mental health professional. When they clear you of all medical or mental health causes, and you've still got your problem, or still got part of your problem, it might be an energetic cause. That's when you go and see an energy worker. You never see energy workers up front, and people like it when I say that. I'm just honest. You never assume you've got an energetic issue until you've ruled out the medical and the mental health. So Chapter 3 I called attachment methods. And what that means, it's just a term that I use to describe, it's how they attach to your energy. So that can be your personal energy field, they can attach to your body. Sometimes these beings are attached to homes or even pets and objects. I talk about that a lot. There's a few episodes about haunted objects. So dark beings, they are primarily attached to us or places or people or pets for an energetic food source. So attachment methods, they can occur through your negative thoughts, your actions, your words, your reactions, also through traumas you experience, through addiction energy, anything that we're not dealing with mentally or emotionally in a positive way is going to create a vibration, and these beings are going to attach to you. They can attach through different methods such as cording, which is creating an energetic cord into your energy fields or your physical body. It's just like a superhighway where these beings travel through a tunnel. Now, these tunnels can be from the being to you, or they can travel to you from another person. We all have energy cording to people that we love and sometimes people that we don't get on with. All those energy vampires out there, they will suck on your energy they get close to you and they create these energy cords to you if you're vulnerable and unaware of what they're up to. So if you don't want to deal with energy vampires and the demonic entities that are attached to them, don't fall for energy vampires' drama and all the traumas going on in their life. It is not your business. It is not your problem. Don't get involved. So I have very strong boundaries. I support lots of people, but I will not get caught in their drama, because sometimes when you let your guard down and you feel sorry for someone, you can actually create these cords. You create the cord to the person, or the person creates the cord to you, and then you're stuck with their demons that are travelling backwards and forwards between two energy sources, between two food sources. It's so fascinating how these beings work. So in Chapter 3, we look at all the different types of attachment methods. And we look at possession, we look at past life attachment, which is really interesting. Also astral projection connection. We look at portals, we look at wormholes, we look at cording. They're the three main ways that these beings can attach to us. And when you're aware of it, you know what to avoid. So Chapter 4, people all want to transition spirits off into the light. There's a problem with that. You put out that vibe, you are going to attract spirits. And I don't mean one, or two, or three. You're going to get them in their hundreds sometimes, depending on where you do the transition work and how sort of dedicated you are to the process. The more interest that you have in doing spiritual work and transitioning spirits, you're going to attract them. And you've got to have boundaries. Otherwise, they're going to create attachment methods to you. Spirits don't cord to you, but they will hang around in your home and they will follow you everywhere. They'll be like little groupies, just how it works. Some people want to transition spirits and they want to understand a simple process for doing it. So in Chapter 4, I share some simple processes for working with higher vibrational beings, whether it be angels, archangels, God, Source, Buddha, whoever you want to work with. Clearing dark energy beings, that is, how can I put it? That is more difficult. It is complex, it is tricky, it requires detective work. Because remember, they're here in homes and around people and attached to objects because of particular vibrations. And the same again, just as spirits will be drawn to you, oh yeah, she does transitioning, wow, let's go to her. The dark energy beings, they take a slightly less friendly approach. They get annoyed, they get upset, they will threaten you with pinches, punches, pushes, pokes, prods, electric shocks. You hear me talk about it all the time. I've been into buildings where I've just been going to buy, fruit and veggies, and I've come up against an energetic force field that I cannot walk through. It is the funniest thing you've ever seen. People look at you like you're nuts. This is these beings going, oh, she can't come into this shop where we live because she's going to go down the back and clear all that trauma energy that the boss and one of the workers created when they had a big Barney. So there's all that energy lingering in the back of the shop and they think I'm there to clear it. And I'm like, no, I just want to buy my pumpkin or broccoli or Brussels sprouts. So clearing darker energy beings, really just leave that to the specialists because we live it. We understand how these beings work. It is a lifestyle. Because once these beings know what you do, I know I'm on my soapbox here, but I'm talking about this from experience. Once they know you do this line of work, you are a threat. And they are aware of you everywhere you go. You're going to feel their presence. They will make themselves known to you. Now, I'm not trying to frighten people. I am being real. Chapter 5. Now, this is important. This is something that I've not heard anyone else ever talk about. Chapter 5 is all about identifying and understanding paranormal addiction. Now, I have talked about it on the podcast. I think I did 2 episodes way back at the beginning. People have an addiction to experiencing paranormal, and I can talk about it from personal experiences. Oh my goodness, from dealing with hundreds of clients who have all got paranormal addiction, but won't identify it as that. They want the drama. They want the experiences. They go from energy worker to energy worker to energy worker to get that fix of sharing their story, sharing the drama, and getting the, oh my God, response from the energy workers. Well, I have to say they hit a brick wall when they come to me. I'm very real. I'm very kind. I'm very respectful, but I will outline it as I see it. And I can always pick paranormal addiction by the way people write their emails, the type of language they use, and even when I talk to them on the phone. I've just got a feeler for it because I'm a paranormal addict. I understand how it works. I mean, everyone's different. We all have our own perspectives about the paranormal. But you can just tell by the way people want attention and they dramatise. And I've just realised in my notes, as I scroll down, I covered paranormal addiction fully back in episode 19 and also in episode 21. So if you want to give those a listen, scroll back down and find those episodes. So chapter 6, we're at the end of my book called The Darkness Around Us. This was quite a challenging perspective for a lot of people. A lot of people threw their arms up in the air and gave me a whole mouthful of cheek about this. I call chapter 6 the healing space. People understand that spirits go to the light. When we leave our physical bodies, we've got to go somewhere. If we don't stay here, we go into the afterlife. It's just how it works. But when I talk about where dark energy beings go, where demonic beings can go when they choose to through free will, why? Why would they be welcome in mass consciousness? Do they change their ways? Why would God want them? Well, where do people think they came from in the first place? They're the opposite end of the scale to the angelic beings. They're energy. We are all energy. We all came from that mass consciousness. So chapter 6 looks at where dark energy beings go. I look at the process. I look at how it works. So you have some sort of understanding and maybe develop a little bit more compassion and respect for the dark energy beings and understanding them. The book really does help people understand and go, wow, this is a perspective I've never heard anyone share before, and in a really relatable way. Just makes it normal, but they're part of our environment. It's really quite fun to understand these beings, and when you walk into a space and you go, oh, why does this space feel like that? oh, it might be some paranormal beings here. So in chapter 6, I talk about the threshold, and I talk about what and where is the healing space. Like, it's in the afterlife, but it's not in mass consciousness. These beings have work to do on themselves. It's like all those spirits that think they've been naughty in this lifetime, they're going to get away with it. No, no, no. You have to deal with your naughtiness when you go to the other side. Not in a bad way. You're not judged. It's just you've got to deal with it. You've got to face it and you've got to work through it. Same for the spirits, same for the demonic level beings. Now, I talk about the welcoming committee, which I found absolutely fascinating. That was something I was shown because for a while when I was writing this book, I was putting out the vibration of writing this book, writing this chapter. I was getting beings coming to me who wanted to be transitioned into the afterlife. And these are the demonic beings. So there's lots of stories in this book about these dark and demonic level entities wanting to transition and how they transition. There's a story somewhere in the book called The Defector. He'd had enough. He was a high-ranking demonic level entity and he just went, you know what? I had enough of doing this. I've been doing this for eons. I don't want to be here anymore. I've had enough. And we also talk about why these beings resist crossing into the light. And graduation, which was an interesting word that came to me, and you wouldn't really relate it to demonic beings. Now, I don't know a lot about their graduation, but there wasn't a lot more information given yet. And I may very well in the future, now I'm putting it out there, do an episode on what happens to demonic level beings once they've been to the healing space, done the work on themselves, raised their vibration. Where do they go next? So I trust you've found this episode interesting and eye-opening. And for those who are very visual, you might appreciate the written document about pretty much everything that I talk about on this podcast about dark and demonic entities. There isn't anything in this book about the magic beings. That was an experience that I had after this book was finished. So I don't think I'll be writing any more books in the future. It is too expensive and too time consuming, but I will be sharing many more episodes on this podcast, probably until the day I die, because there are just hundreds and thousands of questions and topics and things that people ask me. They're like, why, who, what, how? So I hope you found this interesting today and it has given you some self-awareness and how you can observe the environment without fear. That is really, really important. So in episode 112, you are going to get an in-depth look at orbs. Some call them spirit orbs, dust orbs, bugs that randomly fly across your camera lens. So what are they? Why are they here? Why do we see them? I'm going to share some of my information and shared to me from clients who've had more orb experience than myself. And I've got 8 different types of orbs to talk about. So I look forward to spending some time with you next week, unpacking energy orbs. And if you like this episode, you want to learn more about the paranormal, I'm always sharing new information that nobody else does. Please hit the subscribe button, send me a comment, send me one of your stories. So thank you for joining me today. And don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording, or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.